best way to grow a SaaS business in your experience?
There's no silver bullets. What you need is a kind of systematic way of exploring which channels might be worth investing in, and then experimenting with them until they've proven to be these scalable channels that you can really go all in on, right? And now start to pour a lot of money and time and effort into. I think that people have a hard time with it because, especially a lot of founders in SaaS come from a product background, right? So they're technical, they code, they just built a cool thing, or they have this cool idea, and now they have to do something that they have never been familiar with, which is, to spread the word and to get people to actually look at this and use it at scale, right? And I didn't fully understand that struggle until I learned to code, and then I built an app, and then I tried to market it, and then I realized, I can see what the disconnect is here now, because in coding, everything is completely deterministic. It's, I put in this input, and every single time I'm going to get this output. And depending on how many inputs you have or the scale of those inputs is always proportionate to the outputs that you can expect, right? And marketing is the exact opposite. It's basically a slot machine. You're playing the lottery. You need to find a good slot machine. It's what you need. A slot machine that hits, once every 3 times instead of once every 3,000 times. But that's really, really tough. And so I talk to technical founders all the time, and they see marketing as if it's a deterministic problem. And they think, okay, well, if I just write X number of blog posts, I should get Y number of customers. And if I pour X amount into this newsletter sponsorship, I should get Y number of trials. And that's just not how it works, unfortunately. I really, really wish that it did. I would be a billionaire by now. I think a lot of us would be. But you have to experiment, and you have to make all these tweaks and refinements to keep kind of manipulating the slot machine, if you will, to get better and better odds and to hit more and more often as you go. So it's probably not going to hit the first time or the second time, but as you go, you're supposed to be able to hit more and more often. Personally, I like to start with channels that I think are most likely to hit the most often. Like, why play on hard mode when you can play on easy mode? So sales is one of those things where you're just doing direct outreach, and there's definitely a little bit more deterministic approach that you can take with it, right? Where if I have a good sales pitch and I'm reaching the right people and I can send emails out at scale or connect on LinkedIn at scale, I can expect X number of calls to be booked, trials to be created, et cetera, and so forth. And it's great because it's usually free-ish and it involves your time. And so it's good to do early on. And it's sort of one of those why not strategies. Similar to Product Hunt, it's like if you're not doing some sort of sales, some sort of outreach, I think you're just lazy because it's available for everybody. One of the other ones that I think is really tried and true is SEO. And it's so funny because everybody always wants to talk about SEO and how it doesn't work as well as it used to. And now with AI, it's like, is SEO even going to be a thing anymore? And it's like, we've been talking about this for decades now. Is search still viable, and is search still yes, and it always will be. Let's stop trying to give ourselves excuses that we don't need to do this anymore, because it's always going to be there. In fact, just a little tangent on the AI bit. So many people are like, Perplexity and ChatGPT are replacing Google. That's not true, because where do you think Perplexity and Google are getting all their information from, and how they're ranking their suggestions or recommendations for tools, or where they're getting their citations, right? I think actually SEO is only going to become more important because it's going to be the number one thing you can control for the AI-driven search solutions and the AI chatbots and the AI research tools and so on and so forth. So anyways, I digress. I love SEO because it's the only source of free and recurring traffic. No other channel is free and recurring. In fact, most of the recurring or maybe more predictable sources of traffic are all paid. It's pay to play, Google, PPC, Meta ads, LinkedIn, newsletter sponsorships, where, you put some money in and you can expect a certain number of impressions or clicks or conversions, if you want to call it that, over time. But SEO is one of the only ones where it has that predictability and it's free. And the great thing is that it compounds over time. So the more that you invest in it, you don't see the results right away, but as time goes on, you get more and more return out of that investment over time. There's still ads. I think that it's more and more expensive every day, but ads are still a great channel. There's partnerships, and partnerships can come in a lot of different varieties between affiliates, white labeling, agency kind of relationships where there may be more of a service provider or an implementer. You can have kind of co-marketing relationships with other technology providers and other SaaS companies. But those are usually like the 4 that I go for first because they're the best slot machines that I've tried.
It's amazing. I think great minds think alike, because the standard sort of playbook that I've always kind of operated with is you start off with cold outbound, email, LinkedIn messages, DMs on social media, whatever it is, depending on your target customer. Again, because it's cheap and it's super targeted. And the other cool thing about that I think gets really underestimated a lot of the time is you don't really need to have your funnel fully figured out at that point. Like early on, your website probably looks terrible. Your messaging probably isn't quite hitting the mark. You don't really have product market fit yet, and you've got to go and get customers. So you need something that is fast and cheap and relatively targeted. And there aren't many other channels out there that tick all 3 of those boxes, but it's a lot harder to scale, which is where, like you're saying, the SEO and the content stuff comes into place. So I've always kind of recommended starting off with cold outreach. While you've got the cold outreach happening and you're getting to talk to customers and you're refining the messaging and you're figuring out, you're doing all the validation as you go, as well as the sales. It's kind of, 2 sides of the same coin. And then you start building up all the content in the background, and you start working on SEO in the background, because the SEO has a lot of things going for it, but it's slow, even if you do everything the right way. Actually, I was talking to, that's probably an interesting segue. I was talking to a guy named Lars Lofgren. I'll stick a link up there somewhere.
Legend.
He's awesome. So he was the head of marketing at Kissmetrics for a while. Now runs his own thing. He was saying how he built an affiliate business that made $7.2 million a year, and then it all fell apart. So, on the one hand, it's like that's got to suck. But in his view, he thinks that SEO has kind of turned into a bit of the Wild West at the moment. Not so much in SaaS. Like he said, if you're building a SaaS business, you can make lots of different channels work if you've got like an actual business with an actual brand. Affiliate land, it's a little bit harder, but he said the biggest impact on SaaS companies is that a lot of affiliate channels have dried up because they were the ones relying on SEO, and now that's gotten a lot more difficult and a lot more consolidated, and AI and Reddit and everything else is changing that. Have you noticed much of an impact in SEO land for SaaS, or what always worked will continue to work?
No, there's definitely been an impact. Like everything, it's always evolving and it's always changing. The big thing that I think a lot of people, I think this is easier for me because I was sort of new enough to the game, and that I don't remember the good old days when SEO was so easy. You know what I mean? And I think that's where a lot of people, especially people who are doing SEO in the 2000s or 2010s, early 2010s, where it just felt pretty reliable, predictable. There were a lot of things you could do to basically game the Google algorithm and the rankings to be in your favor. And today, I don't know if the Wild West is how I would describe it, but I would say it's definitely saturated for sure, which means that the quality just goes up and it becomes harder to know what is really going to move the needle to get you from position 10 to position 1, for example. It's just hyper competitive. And AI doesn't help, especially with the Gemini, generated search results and kind of summaries, things like that. I mean, the other thing is like a lot of the people that have been impacted the most by SEO are the ones that were creating the content that was the easiest to disrupt. And what I mean by that was like, it was the most top of funnel. It was the information that required the least amount of expertise. It was information that was easily copyable and that, very quickly satisfied a search intent. What hasn't been impacted whatsoever have been a lot of bottom of funnel type of keywords, more commercial intent keywords, SEO that is pretty niche, right? That isn't so hyper competitive where we're trying to go after keywords that are, a keyword difficulty of 80 and have 50,000 searches a month. Where if you're playing in the like keyword difficulty 10 to 30 range and the keywords are generating, 50 to 5,000 searches per month, nothing has really changed all that much because that's still very reliant on having good expertise, good best practices. People are doing a lot of education for themselves, right? So they're going to be clicking through 1, 2, 3, maybe even 10 search results as opposed to just the first one and then quickly bouncing and going on with their day, right? So of course it's changed, of course it's evolved, but I just think that this goes on with like a lot of the silver bullets and growth hacks that people used to rely on. Listen, I am a huge fan of growth hacks. I just think that it's incredibly hard to actually find them these days and or rely on them because then they get exploited and they disappear so quickly. You know what I mean? There were growth hacks people used to rely on with like, oh, we have this loop and this flywheel of like, if this was embedded on someone's site and then they saw it and it was powered by, then everybody started doing that and then that lost all of its juice. Fill in the blank with any other kind of mainstream growth hack people have used, and it's just harder to make it work. Not to say that there won't be any in the future, but part of me feels like, guys, let's just go back to the basics. Let's stop looking for the easy things. Stop looking for excuses on like how to make your job easy. Like the job is going to be hard. You have to like fight for customers these days. So I don't know. I don't like complaining about the current state of things. It's like, well, the game changed. Sorry, but evolve or get left behind.